this like a picture?
Yes, it was waters.
Is this not ginormous?
This is huge.
What are you
Fine.
doing?
Fine. Here, because a lot more people moved and settled there first. But then when Nebraska became a state on March 1st, 1867, they wanted to move the capital elsewhere, a little bit further out west, because there were other people living throughout Nebraska, but they weren't concentrated in one single area, because when they moved the capital here, this was a very small village called Lancaster at the time, so there were only about 30 people that were living here when it became the state capital, so it did start pretty small, but the population has grown a lot more over time due to having the state capital as a seat of government, and then the University of Nebraska-Lincoln as a pretty large school, so that happens to grow the population. They built the first two Capitol buildings on the same spot as this one, so the building we're in today is the third official state Capitol building for Nebraska. The reason there are so many on this spot is the first two Capitols started to crumble and fall apart. They used native Nebraska limestone for them, which is a pretty brittle material. They also constructed very quickly just to get a building up. So the first two Capitols lasted only about 50 years combined, so they weren't around for very long. They started construction on this building in 1922, and it was completed in 1932. So it took only about 10 years to build this building, and it's nearly 100 years old. And it was a large team of people that put this Capitol together. So we start with the architect who designed the building. How they chose that person was through a nationwide competition in 1920. So the architect that won the competition is named Bertram Goodhue. He's actually from New York. So he came from quite a ways away to design Nebraska's capital, but he's worked on a lot of buildings all throughout the United States as well. And we have a couple of different artists who helped design parts of the building. We have a sculptor named Lee Laurie. A lot of sculpture inside and outside the building was designed by him. So most notably outside of the Capitol, we have the statue that's all the way at the top of the tower. So this figure there is called the sower. So it's a man that's sowing seeds from a bag at his side. This is to represent farming and agriculture, because agriculture is really important to the state, so a lot of arts represents that. And inside of the building, it was only one person that designed all of the marble floor mosaics and the ceramic tile ceiling mosaics. So all the art on the floors and ceilings. These were designed by Hildreth Muir. That designed almost all of the original art for this building, and it's all very impressive work, so it's a really cool aspect of this building here. So if you look again at the ceiling and the floors, it's all really detailed artwork. And all of the artists were from New York, so it does pose just a little bit of a problem because they don't know as much about Nebraska and its history and culture. So the artists worked with a thematic consultant, or someone who would decide what the art of the building should represent and its symbolism. His name was Hartley Burr Alexander, and he was born and grew up here in Nebraska, so he knew a lot more about the state. He also taught philosophy at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and knew a lot about Native American culture. And all these people worked together and decided there's two main functions for this building. So one is to house the government. We do have all three branches of the government in this building. So right down this hallway, kind of like legislative branch, so we have two chambers on the east and west sides, and at the other end of the building you have the judicial branch with the Supreme Court chamber, I just have the doors all the way down there if you can see them. And then the other function for this building is to tell the story of different people that have come to live in Nebraska. So first we have representations of Native Americans as the first people that lived here. So if you can see those doors back behind you that you just came through, in the outside corners there's hunters with bows as well as deer and wolves to represent Native American hunters. Chandelier hanging from the middle of the dome. Going around the outside of it, we have the feathered ends of arrows. So basically there's arrows sticking out around the outside of the light, part of the bow and arrows, important to Native American culture. And lastly, if you look at the top of these 4 red columns or pillars, there's white stone at the top. So here there's corn and buffalo, really important sources of food for Native Americans, important parts of their culture. And then below the corn and buffalo are wheat. So this was brought by the next group of people, the pioneers. And so if you look a little bit lower than that, there's 3 paintings on the walls up here in really bright colors. This shows the story of the pioneers arriving and settling down in Nebraska. So kind of on your right side over here, this painting has the covered wagon and horses on it. Behind you, above the doors, this image represents agriculture. So there's oxen pulling the plow through the earth. The last painting over on this wall, kind of on your left side, has a lot more people in it. So this is called the house raising. It's a house raising party of neighbors coming together in order to help each other build a house. The house behind them is a sod house, which is what many of the first houses in Nebraska were. So sod is made up of the earth, the dirt, and the grass. This was used because there weren't very many trees in Nebraska when the pioneers first lived here. But then later on, pioneers did plant a lot more trees in Nebraska to have more wood for houses and other things later on. And then next we'll look up at the ceiling, at the dome here. So the theme of a lot of the art up here is gifts of nature. So if you look in the very center of the dome, there's a sun up there. There's actually a sun right below your feet in the center of this space as well, to show the importance of sunlight, as this helps plants and crops grow. In the circle outside of the sun on the ceiling are symbols of the zodiac and the 4 seasons. Then in the blue circle outside of that are agricultural corn and wheat, and then animals like cattle, sheep, and pigs. And in the outside arches of the chamber, so right above the red columns and going across on all 4 sides, there's blue circles, and within them we have wild animals that are native to Nebraska. There's a lot of different types of animals. There's birds, rodents, predators, deer. There's a buffalo, even animals like a skunk and a raccoon, to show how important all different types of animals are to Nebraska and the ecosystems here.